You're listening to episode 125, Balancing Being a Child Life Specialist and a Mom, with my friend Jessica Lewin. Hello, my friends. I hope you're doing well today. This is a little bit of a different episode because way back in the day, like a whole year ago, 2021, June, I had the opportunity to be on the Child Life Wildlife podcast, which is hosted by my friend Jessica Lewin. And she is wonderful and creative and an entrepreneur. And I've loved getting to watch her just explode and create so many opportunities for child life specialists and students who are interested in the field. So we are doing an episode swap. So she was recently on our podcast, Child Life on Call, as a guest, and now I was on hers. So I wanted to share that episode with you. So this is a little more child lifey than usual, not so parent story based, but I am a mom too. So if you've been interested in learning a little bit more about me, you can listen to the conversation here, or you can go listen to the Child Life Wildlife podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get started. Before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you guys know that if you are a parent, a child life specialist, or professional working with children, you're going to want the hospital or physician's office or urgent care that you take your kids to have the Child Life On Call app. It is an evidence-based tool designed to empower children and families during medical experiences. And 100% of the child life specialists who have used this app believe that it can help with expanding child life's reach beyond the bedside. And 100% of child life specialists believe it helps parents feel more empowered in their child's care. Learn how to get the Child Life On Call app for your facility or doctor's office by going to childlifeoncall.com/partners.
For me, it gave me a new perspective in my life. I got and could offer something different that I couldn't before.
Welcome to the Child Life Wildlife Podcast, a platform dedicated to sharing the honest ins and outs and vulnerable truths about the child life profession with your host, Jessica Lewin. Come and gain tangible next steps and confidence as you learn how to use your child life skills, protect your mental health, and glean inspiration, hope, and ideas from fellow certified child life specialists, students, and professionals. And now, here's your host, Jessica Lewin.
Hello and welcome to the Child Life Wildlife Podcast. I am so excited that you're listening today because I have the privilege of talking to Katie Taylor, who runs the podcast Child Life on Call. She has been my mama with this podcast, leading me and guiding me and helping me, and I've just really, really appreciated her heart for bringing content to the child life world and allowing me to have a little piece of that and sharing that with me. So she is actually on the podcast today to talk about child life and motherhood. This was a really unique conversation for me to have, not personally being a mom yet, but having lots of questions, and I'm eager to know what it's like to be a child life specialist and a mom, and I know lots of moms that are child life specialists. So this was also something that came highly requested from people who wanted more information on this, who are moms themselves, or who knew that at some point in their lives they would want to start a family, and they were curious how that would look with being a mom. So we talk about all things pregnancy, all things having children, the unexpected, the expected, and all sorts of things in between. And I really think you're going to enjoy this conversation that I have with Katie. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Katie Taylor about motherhood in the child life profession. Hi, Katie. Thank you so much for being on the Child Life Wildlife Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so excited for you to talk to me about child life and motherhood. I'm eager, without being a mom, to find out kind of the ins and outs of what that's like for you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, and just big props to starting a podcast in the child life world. I think you definitely saw an area where we could use more. And so I'm just, as a fellow podcaster, happy to have you in this space with me. It's always like nice to have other people
I know.
doing something similar.
I know. And you are just like the person that I'm like looking up to and helping me and texting and being like,
dear
help
God.
me. So I love it. I appreciate it. For starters, could you tell me and my listeners a little bit about who you are and anything you'd like for us to know?
Yeah, sure. So I am Katie Taylor, a child life specialist. I live in Austin, Texas. I am a part-time child life specialist right now. I'm supervisor of a small children's hospital here. And then also clinically, I spend time in the NICU. So I started a NICU position here as a child life specialist a couple of years ago. I have 2 kiddos. Cameron is 3. Wesley is 5. He'll tell you 5.5, almost 6. And my husband, Preston, and I live together here. Obviously, he's my husband. And he's a nurse anesthetist. So that's always a fun little, it's like a fun dynamic because we actually met in the hospital. So
Really?
I love that. Yeah, he was doing all of the peds neuro cases, and I was working in the surgery center. So we were both Texans living in D.C., working at the same hospital, both going through divorces.
Oh my goodness.
Podcast for another story for
Another time.
day. But one of my things about like being married to a nurse anesthetist was like, what do you think we do? Like when we first started dating. And I was like, are you going to call me a bubble blower?
Right.
Are you going to call me like the play lady? What are you going to say? And his response was like, all I know is you make my job a lot easier. And I was like, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think couples, I'm biased, but couples who are both helping professions are always fun because I think they're so understanding of what we do, you know?
For sure.
So
yes.
That's very cool.
Yeah, having somebody who gets it is like such a big part of a partnership.
It's another level.
It's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of motherhood, like think back during your practicum and your internship or even your job, did you have anybody that you looked up to that you felt like was doing it all? And when I say doing it all, in my mind, I'm thinking of full-time child life specialist, mom, like just has all these things going for them. Because in my mind, I personally can't imagine putting motherhood on my plate yet. But
yeah, that's a really good question. I think as a woman and a mom, I had a mom who was a stay-at-home mom until I went to high school and met me off the bus and, you know, just was there all the time. And I would see other kids whose parents worked and I'd be like, oh man, that sucks for them. Their mom, like they have to go to the after-school program. And so I just really always pictured myself being at home. And like child life is what I love, but when I became a mom, that's what I was going to do. I was going to be a stay-at-home mom.
Sure.
So, you and I have kind of talked about my issues. I had a point in my child life career where I was ready to leave the field and be done, and that happened to be right before I became a mom to Wesley. And I left my job, was like, this is cool. This is just what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be a mom. And I guess the reason I bring that back up is when I would see other child life specialists that I worked with who were moms, I didn't get it. I'm like, why aren't you home? Like, what? Like, we don't get paid that much. Like, isn't there like childcare costs as much as we get paid? So like, what are you doing here? And I completely, like, it's not that I judge them for it. I just didn't understand it.
Right.
So that's kind of what I had always thought. Like, I think it's so cool that you can have kids and do your career, but I didn't know why you'd want to do both. Well, that just shows the ignorance of myself and not needing to expand my mind to what's okay and that everybody has different paths and they're all going to look different. So long story short, my son was born. Obviously, I love him to death. Being at home was not for me. I was going crazy. My anxiety was so high. I had no outlet. I was stressed all the time. I did not sleep. And I went back to work when he was 13 months old. And now I can't imagine not working. In fact, like I just keep putting more things on my plate work-wise,
Mm-hmm.
and I have another kid too. So
Yeah.
I don't know, that's kind of my story.
Yeah. When you got pregnant with Wesley, was it the plan in the back of your mind of, okay, now's the time I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom? Or were you still kind of going like, oh, I didn't realize that we were going to have kids this soon. I guess I'll just try and see how it goes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. My plan was that I was going to stay at home,
Okay.
and that was going to be my role.
Okay.
And I had left the child life field, and I was going to be fulfilled by this sweet little baby.
Yes.
And that, while I was 100% fulfilled, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
by the love I had for him and the joy he brought, there was something inside of me that needed and wanted child life to come back. For me, it gave me a new perspective of the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt this call to support caregivers and to be there for parents, because I feel like for the first time in my life, I got and could offer something different that I couldn't before. And that's just kind of my personal experience with becoming a mom.
Sure. Can you expand on that a little bit of what that new perspective was for you?
Yeah, I guess I didn't know how transformative the process was going to be for me. I mean, I have always loved children. I have always wanted to support families and children who are exposed to hard things. My mom has been in the child abuse prevention arena for as long as I can remember. And in college at Penn State, I was heavily involved in Thon, which raises money for Hershey Children's Hospital in PA. And I worked at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and I just always have had that heart. So I didn't know how much becoming a mom could pull on that in a different way. And it clicked for me.
Yeah. Was that around the time that you started the Child Life on Call podcast?
Yeah, so let's see. I went back to work when Wesley was 13 months at this great little hospital here in North Austin, who just loved and supported me, and family is first. And it's just been amazing. And I started the podcast a few months after working there because it was a small hospital. Parents didn't have the opportunity to meet each other and connect. And as becoming a mom, I listened to a ton of birth podcasts. I just wanted to hear birth stories. And I just really wanted to provide parents with stories that they could listen to while they were sitting alone in a hospital room, feeling totally isolated and unempowered. And so that's kind of where the podcast was born from. And having that new mom experience myself, I was looking at other parents saying, what else can I give them to help their child?
Sure. The position that you took at this small hospital, what unit were you on?
Yeah, so because it's a small hospital, we were 12-hour shifts covering the whole house,
Okay.
right? So from ER to PICU to med-surg to OR to radiology, we covered the whole place. So we've since grown a little bit, and like I said, I'm in the NICU now clinically, so that was also a fun little journey. But all that kind of happened while I was a mom too.
Yeah. I feel like you being in the NICU now makes total sense with the fact that you have such a passion and calling for working with families. That's what you're doing in the NICU the majority of the time. You know, you're empowering families to take care of their little babies. So that's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, especially during COVID, where a big part of a NICU child life specialist is the sibling component,
Right.
which really became was really non-existent for us because of all of the hoops we had to jump through for any kind of virtual consults. And,
Right.
you know, it really was caregiver support and education to help the sibling. So it really was a lot of that child life specialist to parent teamwork aspect.
Yeah. Was there anything either at your new job right after right after Wesley turned 13 months and you went back, or now that you're in the NICU, was there any interventions that you've done since then that you feel like, I don't know if I would have thought of this if I wasn't a mom?
Yeah, I think one off the bat is I attend a lot of one-on-one PT sessions with parents. When parents are working with a physical therapist or an occupational therapist in the NICU, and they're doing their first hands-on training. I'll go and I'll attend the little meeting and the education session, and I'll take notes of some of the big things the physical therapist or occupational therapist is showing. Or if the neurologist comes and I know the parents are in total shock mode still, like they've just had a baby with some sort of brain injury or HIE and they're just not processing, I'll go into that room and I'll take notes the whole time. Or we'll go to a caregiver. Like before, I just don't think I would have had the time or the understanding about how important that is. But just knowing when you're sleep deprived, you're in shock, you have this whole little life that you're now in charge of. You're just not processing information at all. So if I can go in any capacity and take notes and just be a sounding board to hear what the doctor's saying for a family, then I do that.
So essentially what you're doing in the NICU, I have never worked in the NICU, so this fascinates me, but I did a rotation in my internship just for like a day. But what you're doing of like, you know, noticing that they're in shock and taking notes for them, you're kind of being a child life specialist for adults in a sense of taking all of the medical jargon and putting it into a way that somebody who is in shock and is not familiar with the medical setting can understand.
Exactly.
That is
that's
so
totally
cool.
what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm empowering parents to take pictures of the whiteboard every day, so it helps them keep track of who their nurse was. Yeah, it's very. I mean, the NICU for me is just. I say we did a 3-month trial there to see if Child Life was going to fit into our NICU. We have 80 beds, so it's a big one.
Sure.
And I got through 2 months and 3 weeks and 4 days. And I said, this is not for me. Like I've enjoyed my time here, but I want to go back to kids and families and the ER and lac repairs. Like I missed the procedures.
Yeah.
And I had this one patient in the NICU, which was an NAS baby, which is a neonatal abstinence syndrome. So they're being withdrawn basically from drugs that mother took during pregnancy. And I was just the only one available that day to be able to hold this baby and kind of help them through some of their withdrawal symptoms because they constantly want to suck. They constantly want to eat. It's like they're looking for those seeking behaviors. And I thought to myself, like, oh my God, if I weren't here today, who would be doing this? And the answer was nobody.
Yeah.
And like that just flipped a switch for me. And I was like, wow, there's so much opportunity. And this is just the tip of the iceberg with this population. So that's what that little babe, we can all thank.
Yes.
For having a NICU child life specialist now.
You had like 1 or 2 more days and you would have been out.
I would have been out for sure.
That is amazing. So being pregnant while working as a child life specialist, I think this is something that not many people talk about either. I know not from personal experience, but from observing my coworkers that it comes with its challenges. What were some unique challenges that you experienced while working pregnant?
And I've got 2 really big things that stand out to me as being pregnant. But I had a situation where I was helping with a bereavement and I was very pregnant. So probably at least 7 months, definitely showing. And the patient passed away in the ER. And, I haven't talked about this in a while. But I had, I walked the mom out to her car afterwards because when you lose a child in the ER, it's so quick. There's such turnover. We have the honor a lot of times of just prioritizing these families and staying with them the whole time. So I walked her out to the car and she grabbed me and she looked at my belly and she grabbed my belly and she said, make sure you love this little thing so much. And I just lost it. And we sat there together and we cried. And it gives me chill bumps thinking about it's like this obvious moment where I have my baby and she doesn't have hers. I mean, it was like so crushing. It was really, really a hard moment.
Yeah.
My other memory of being pregnant is that I had really bad sciatica, so I walked with a limp during the last 3 months of my pregnancy. So everybody was always like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" I'm fine, guys. Like this doesn't look normal to you.
Oh.
But yeah, those were some unique challenges that I think you face.
Yeah. Okay, going to a more positive note, what is
Yeah.
the best part of being a mom and a child life specialist?
For me, one of the best parts of being a mom and a child life specialist is the fact that we have this child development background and sprinkled in with a ton of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, as my son is growing up and my daughter is growing up, I can kind of be aware of the way to talk to them and prepare them
Mm-hmm.
for things. And I set timers before we do stuff. And I kind of just have this, background knowledge of how to work with kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been really positive because I think for the most part, I'm not saying my kids are perfect in any way, okay? Like
Yeah.
literally, they will slap me across the face. So y'all, just like we don't have it all together. But they are pretty well adjusted to new experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So like we just went to the dentist this morning. It was my 3-year-old's first time. She's very loud and opinionated, and the way I prepared her this morning was we have this Dora book. She's obsessed with Dora the Explorer. Like it's an unhealthy level of obsession. And on one side, Dora goes to the dentist. On the other side, she goes to the doctor. And so we have kind of been reading that. And then this morning, I quickly, just even without asking, put on a Daniel Tiger episode that was going to the dentist and getting teeth cleaned.
Mm.
So I didn't really even kind of sit down and do any play preparation for her. And one of the things I really want her to learn is how to act with other adults.
Sure.
So, and to listen to like new figures of authority. So when we go in, I really do try to let the dental hygienist take over, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm stepping back, but I can jump in when I need to.
Yeah.
Whereas in the hospital, I think I'm very much like facilitating the whole experience for the family.
Yeah.
When it was my own kid, I step back a little bit and let her kind of decide which way she wants this to go.
Yeah. I know, again, not speaking from personal experience, but from what I've heard my coworkers say is, especially the child life coworkers, is they feel like they have blinders on sometimes for their own kids of like things
Yes.
that things that they do with children, and when it's their own kid, they're like, what is wrong? Why can't I get you? And one of my coworkers was like, my husband was like, don't you do this at work and you use blah blah blah? And she was like, oh shoot, I forgot.
Yeah.
Like
I forgot. Okay, so I have a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
My son was born with torticollis. So that means that his head went to the side.
Okay.
And y'all, I did not see it until he was 4 months old. His ear was on his shoulder. Every picture I took, every video, I had no idea. Finally, I took a picture. He was 4 months old, and I sent it to my friend who's a speech therapist. She was like, oh my gosh, he's so cute. Does he have torticollis? I was like, what are you talking about? Oh, and I looked back at every picture. His head was to the right. Is that crazy? I did not even see it.
4 months?
And we had to go to physical therapy and all this stuff. So, but it's like with my own kid, I just saw the most perfect, healthy baby I've ever seen,
Yes. Oh my gosh. What do you wish you would have known prior to having children, or at least during the first year or two of having children, as it relates to your job as a child life specialist?
I wish I would have known that it's okay to feel things at our job.
Yes.
I think we get taught to really control our emotions when we're dealing with families, and I think that is very important. So I have a experience from my internship where it was a bone marrow aspirate, and those are pretty invasive procedures. And so I think it was like kind of like twilight sleep. So the dad got to stay in, and I was a student, so I was back observing in the corner of the room. And we had the mask and the isolation gown on because it was a sterile procedure. And I just like had to sit down. I thought I was going to pass out. And I probably was tearing up. I don't even remember. And the dad looked at me and he goes, and how would you feel if this were your own kid? And I was like, holy crap, I need to check myself and control my emotions. So I do think that it's very important to do that.
Yeah.
On the other side of the coin, we're also humans. And I think child life specialists being relatable and chatting with parents more and getting to know them at like a peer level, not so much a provider patient level, has a lot of perks. And I don't think I knew that before I became a mom.
Yeah. I know that sometimes I feel like the opportunity for a relationship is cut off, for at least for me, if I'm working with a child and the child is and I are really vibing and the parents are seeing this and the mom will go, do you have kids at home?
Do you have kids?
And I go, no, I don't. And then it's just like, oh, never mind. Then I guess you can't relate to the next thing I was going to say. And the conversation stops. And I'm like, oh, I wish you would keep going, because just because I don't have kids, I mean, you can see I know how to work with them. Like, what were you going to say? So
it's interesting because now that I'm on the other side and I have kids, I actually see parents saying, oh my God, you're so good with kids, you must have them at home.
Yes. I hear that as well.
Yeah. But you're right. There are those families that are like, oh, you don't have kids, you don't get how hard this is for me.
Right.
And that sucks.
It
to
does
feel that way.
Yeah. But it almost feels like because they see me, doing so well with their kid, they want to know about my children. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, not in the sense of like, you get it, but in the sense of like, what are your kids like? Because like, you're doing really good with my kid. Like, exactly. Almost like a validation or like a talk to me about what your experience with motherhood is like. And then I just go, oh, I don't have any yet.
Yeah. And you could say, but I have a mom.
But I am a daughter. So
I like that.
For the last couple questions that I ask, I have been asking them to everyone just because I'm curious about them and I like it. So I like having some consistency.
Yes.
So if somebody is listening today and they're really resonating with what you're saying about being a mom and a child life specialist, what is something that you'd recommend to that mom or to that future mom?
Good question. I would recommend connecting with other moms that are child life specialists. And then I would also recommend connecting with moms who are not child life specialists.
Yes.
And the reason for that is it's really good to have a group that, not that you're two people, but that can see both parts of you, right? And you don't have to always be the child life specialist mom. You can just be a mom. So I think having two separate groups that you can turn to. Also, I very much recommend being on tune with your mental health. And I very much am open and talk about my experience with postpartum anxiety. And I'm on Zoloft or sertraline right now. And so I got on that after my daughter Cameron was born. I had a very tough pregnancy with her. I actually got meningitis.
Oh my goodness.
I was 8 weeks pregnant and I was hospitalized at my hospital actually. So it's funny now, like, what do they call her? My whole hospital calls Cameron Tron because I was 8 weeks pregnant and like was pumped with vancomycin and all this stuff for meningitis. It ended up being viral, but I was treated for bacterial. Long story. And why did I start talking about this? Oh, I remember. And so with that, I think I had baseline anxiety after that experience. And then Cameron was born with odd sacral dimples, and we had to go through MRI, and she had an EEG, and we had some concerns about her development. All that to say, you can have a perfectly healthy child and still have anxiety.
Of course.
But for me, that was my experience. And I think just getting on board with a provider for yourself that you can talk to and somebody that listens to you. And I remember sitting in the waiting room, and Cameron was probably 3 months old. Wesley was 2.5. And I'm like sitting in a doctor's waiting room, a place where I'm very comfortable, right? I work in a hospital. And I'm like shaking and crying in the corner. And this woman comes over. She was like, do you want me to play with your kids for a little bit? It was like some woman waiting for her appointment. And I said, I was like, I couldn't even speak. So she just grabbed them and started playing with them so I could like sit there and cry in the corner.
Oh,
And I went in to see my doctor, and I'm like, I don't think I should be feeling this way. Brushing my teeth feels really hard. I could barely get here today. And, so just being okay with not being okay and going to get help to do it.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think that's something that just needs to be normalized in general, but absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I probably should have been on it, even just not being a mom, but I think people are talking about postpartum anxiety, so it kind of empowers you, or empowered me at least a little bit more to look at it and think I don't have to feel this way.
Right.
So,
right.
big fan of drugs. Big fan.
Big fan. Okay, second question is, I have a lot of students that follow along and listen to the podcast. So what is one thing that you'd say to them as a tip for moving through this profession?
Oh, okay. My favorite tip to child life students is this is like going to sound like bad advice.
Okay.
But to find other skills that you're good at too. We are in a profession that has high turnover, high burnout, and I actually think that being skilled or having hobbies and other things will actually help your career stay longer. I don't know a thing about business. I don't know a thing about podcasting, but those were communication styles and topics that really intrigued me that I wanted to learn more about. It doesn't have anything to do with psychology or psychosocial or child development. It's totally different.
Yeah.
But because of that, I think I've just grown as a child life specialist, as a human. So as you're going throughout your career, like, yes, of course, put your head down, do as much as you can, get your first job, and then kind of look at other things that make you happy and things you want to learn about.
Yeah, that's great advice. So if the podcast is called Child Life Wildlife, if child life is a wildlife, what's the wildest part of your journey so far?
I would 1000% say what Child Life on Call started as and what it has become.
Yes.
Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be building a mobile app and having a podcast and starting a small business. And so that is wild and crazy to me. I literally just like had a meeting with a lawyer before this, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this just keeps happening. But Jessica, I think we're very similar. Like we just can't freaking stop.
Yes.
Like we just can't stop.
Can't stop.
We just do it.
Yeah.
And I love that about child life.
That's awesome.
I think we're just constantly inspired by people that we work with and families, and like there's so much opportunity for support in this space. So I think that's my wildlife story.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I was very eager to ask you, and I know I sent you like multiple categories of like, where would you like to fit in? And I'm really glad that you chose this one.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, and congratulations on the podcast. And I think you're doing awesome things for the field, and I really appreciate all the time that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Child Life On Call podcast. I'm your host, Katie Taylor, and you can follow us at Child Life On Call on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please rate and review to make it easier for other families to find us. We have cute merch available at www.bonfire.com/store/childlifeoncall, and you can listen to more episodes and find resources at childlifepodcast.com.